Hey friends, my name is Jake. Welcome to Canadian Cutting Edge, and like you saw in this thumbnail, the TS208 micarta version. There's also a G10 version of this knife. D2 steel. It's like a stretched out Bowie clip point style blade. Liner lock. Budget version. White Mountain Knives was selling this for $39.99, and the black and blue G10 version sort of looks like it's got a bolster. It actually looks kind of nice. It was like $35.99, I think. Hopefully he gets both of these back. Unfortunately, they're both sold out at this time, and I kind of feel bad. I'm saying that on a lot of these videos, and that's because I bought this probably in, I don't remember, I should probably look it up, but I think it was in November. And then I had my surgery, and my surgery was unexpected to be that early. I was thinking it was going to be like late spring 2022. So I've got a bunch of knives, and you can't get them at the store where I got them from. And to be honest, White Mountain Knives gives me a reviewer's discount. It's not a huge discount, but it's a pretty good discount. Around 30 to 40% is sort of a roughish kind of number that I get off, just to be totally transparent. And you can't get it. This knife, I think, is available on AliExpress. Let me double check my notes here. I prep like 5 knives that I do all my notes for, and then I do the videos, so I don't remember everything. Yeah, AliExpress has this for $42.75, and another seller has it for $45. So if you want these, they are available right now, but if you want them at the best price, you know, wait for White Mountain Knives to get them back in stock again. Hit the notify me button on his page, and then you get another 10% off of that $40 price, which brings it down to $35.99 for this knife. 10% off with coupon code CCE. So I didn't even really want to mention AliExpress, but I know people really want to know where to get the knives. But like I say, I get mine from White Mountain Knives, even sent to Canada. Occasionally, a knife gets confiscated by CBSA, but it's still a whole lot cheaper, and I don't know anywhere in Canada you can get this knife anyway. So a lot of the knives I want, which are low-cost knives, it's just hard to get that kind of knife in Canada, although Canadian prices seem to be coming down. So my fellow Canadians, do shop around when you're looking for knives, because you might be able to find it for a fair price in Canada. Hopefully that continues. And I know there's some new Canadian vendors coming out this year. So stay tuned to this channel to find out about new vendors as they get up and running. It's probably going to take months yet. So just a little bit of a heads up. So without any further ramble-bamble, let's get to the tabletop and take a good look at the TS208 with fingerprints all over the blade. Keep watching. Let's begin with our size comparison with the Ontario Rat 1. There you go. It's basically the same size knife. We're looking at, you know, almost identical in terms of length. We've got more cutting edge here, but pretty much everything else is the same. A little bit less grip area, but very much like this Rat 1, where you've got this forward grip area. Not really a forward choil, but it's a forward grip area. This knife has got the same kind of thing. Getting up here with your thumb, that really does feel pretty good. Now, there's no jimping up here, but you've got a fairly thick spine, and we're going to go through all the dimensions later on. A little bit of jimping here I wish would come a little bit further. Doubling it would be nice, and then you could get a more secure grip, or even tripling it. I wouldn't mind. But I tend to really like jimping up on the spine of blades to get your thumb behind when you do have to, you know, cut through something that's difficult to cut through and you got to push really hard. I like getting that pressure behind the blade instead of doing it all with the the wrist here. I like putting it through the thumb, so it goes along that line, so the strength of your arm gets in there more. So that's just one little piece of opinion, right? Night Morning Design, there's his logo, the N with that triangle. And then it says D2 right there. Now, I wouldn't mind if that was a little bit smaller and maybe put here on the ricasso, but up there, not bad. I don't mind the badging on this knife. And the TwoSun here looks smaller than usual. Most knives, it's a little bit bigger, so I like that. But like I said, I don't like stuff on the bevels. I'd prefer it was up on the flat, but not a big deal. We've got a back sloping plunge, really nice sharpness choil. Fair bit of straight edge, a nice long belly here, great clip point swedge here, and a tip there. The knife keeps most of its thickness up to here, so over half of the blade, and then it starts to taper. But it's a well-shaped knife. It's not the safest knife for puncturing because you've got no guard for your finger, especially if you're sneaking up on that, and you puncture into something and you hit something hard, your hand could slide over. But for most things that you use this kind of knife for, this thing works really well. It's thin behind the grind, and it's sharpened fairly well. So for cutting, slicing, and some minor piercing, I did all my piercing with my hand back here. So I used this choil here as a little bit of protection. It worked okay. The other kind of puncturing you can do is wrap your thumb around the back end of the handle. The liner lock, this one's blackened, so it's like got a black wash all over it. I wouldn't mind if this blade was also black washed, but it's got a nice satin finish. The pocket clip is the traditional budget pocket clip on TwoSun's knives these days. It's just a little bit big for my liking. I'm not fond of how big their pocket clips are, but it comes flat on the top and it performs well. You've got nice big, strong stainless steel screws, not just press screws. These look like they've actually had a little bit of machining on them. They work really well. And then you've got their flush body screws, which I quite like as well. Back spacer, we've got a lanyard pin back here, which I quite like. I like that type of lanyard system. It works well. It's easy to get paracord through there. Very easy indeed. Lockup. Lockup is quite early, but it's secure, so that's good. It never came loose on me when I wanted it to stay locked, so that's good. We've got a nice swedge on the lock release. We've got a nice opening here. It's very easy to get your thumb in there to release that lock. It just works. And either hand, it's just very easy to disengage that lock. So I like that an awful lot. Blade centering, it's very good. So that's kind of nice. The micarta is milled nicely round edges. I forgot to mention the liners before. They're slightly exposed. So it's actually very comfortable in hand. The only thing that can get a little bit hot sometimes is, the back end of this pocket clip, that point right there, where it goes from thin to wider. It can get a little annoying sometimes in the back of the palm of the hand right there. So that's pretty much the overview of that. But I haven't talked about one thing yet, and that is the flipper. Let's take a good look at this flipper. That flipper has got 2 lines of jimping put into the front of it. And other than that, just looks like a bit of a poking out triangle. It is not good for trying to just pull it down on an angle. It tends to, my fingers at least, tend to slide over the edge, and it tends to, well, you can even see it on that finger right there. There's a little bit of a mark right there, just from a very, brief bit of pressure. And that happened quite a lot until I finally stopped trying to do it that way and only did light switch method. Now, light switch method works. You have to get around to the front and then pull back. And when you do that, this works really well. So this flipper is not as comfortable as most flippers on most knives that have back flippers. So just be aware of that. That can be a little bit of con. It took me a while to get used to it, and I was, hurting myself a very tiny bit. Like, I'm not a wuss. I'm just saying that it's hotter, more irritating than most flippers are. So if you're ready for that, maybe you want it, maybe not. If it would have come up just a little bit bigger, like another one of those jimping widths, if it would have come up that little bit extra, it would have been ideal. It might be a little bigger, look a little bit bigger, but it would have been ideal for using. Now let's take this thing apart and show you the insides. I took the screws off the pocket clip. Oh, they're all T8, by the way. And once it's apart, once the handle scales off, you've got this. There's another screw here that holds it together. So that's the body pin screw holding it together. You've got that body screw and then this extra one here to hold it together. Let's take that out. So no skeletonizing over here. Here's your body pin. A very dramatic D-shaped hole here for the pivot pin. So I like that. We've got a nice D-shaped pivot pin. We've got the white nylon ball bearing cage with ceramic ball bearings. And there's some nice skeletonizing in there. And there you see the lanyard hole. The pin for the lanyard is actually nice and big, really robust. So the design is very simple, very straightforward. So it's a very easy knife to do maintenance on. You just need a nice T8 screwdriver, and there's no Loctite anywhere. It just works. I very much appreciate the D-shaped pivot pin too. Let's put it back together and do all the sizes. Before I do my measurements, I wanted to show you the pocket clip working. There you go. It goes all the way to full depth every time, easily. There's lots of room in there. It's good to make a pocket clip that's big enough. But if anybody from TwoSun's watching, this pocket clip is a little bigger than it needs to be. It's going to work just fine if it's just a little bit smaller. If you use flush screws, you can decrease this distance that it stands off of the knife, and then it's more comfortable in hand when you're gripping it for extended use. Sizes and such. Weight, 147 grams, 5.2 ounces. And that balances out right there. So yeah, that's upside down. So I wish if there was a little bit more skeletonizing on the working side, they could bring the balance point a little closer here and bring the weight down a little bit. That would be nice. But for this big knife, I really don't mind. It's barely over 5 ounces, not that big a deal. Factory sharpness, 160 bests. That's good. It's just a tiny bit less sharp than average, but very, very tiny bit. The cutting edge length and the blade length from the tip to the closest spot on the handle is the exact same measurement, 94.5 millimeters, 3.72 inches. So 3 3/4 inch, lots of cutty, stabby, slicey stuff. The thickness of the blade, 3.84 millimeters, 0.151, so well over 1/8 of an inch. The blade depth is widest right here at the heel of the blade, 26.2 millimeters, 1.03 inches. How thick is it behind the grind? I measured it 3 times in this space here. This is where we do most of our, when we're trying hard to cut stuff. 0.38 millimeters, 15 thousandths of an inch. And being D2 steel, if I didn't say it before, I think I did say it before, that's quite good. I like that. The grind angles. This side was around 16.2. This side, 18.5, with less than 1 degree variability on both sides. So it's sharpened without much variability. I really like that. Although, 16 and 18.5, I'd prefer that both of them were 18. That would make for a nice robust knife. If you really want a super robust knife, maybe make it 20 degrees per side. But for most EDC uses, D2 can handle 18 degrees just fine. The length of the handle, and this is the liners because the liners stick out a little bit further. 121.4 millimeters, 4.78 inches. The grip area, between my thumbs here, that's about 10 centimeters, just a little bit under 4 inches. And then if you add this here, it's about 11.5 centimeters, just over 4.5 inches. So take that for what it's worth. And it's worth a lot because lots of good real estate for big hands. Extra large hands are comfortable with this knife. The thickness of the handle, I measured it on the micarta, not on the screws or anything. 15.69 millimeters, 0.617. Yeah, it's a little bit of a big handle. That's why I was saying extra large hands really like this thing. The handle depth. Now, within the grip area, the handle depth, it's biggest right here, but it's also the same as this. Well, this is actually a little bit bigger than this. So handle depth, open or closed, 29.9 millimeters, 1.18 inches. And the total length of this knife, tip to tail, 216 millimeters, 8.5 inches. So what do I think of this knife? I like it. I like it quite a lot. If only it had a better flipper, it would get a very high recommend from me because it has so many good things going for it. But actuating the blade is a big deal, and it just wasn't as good as I would want it to be. It just needs a tiny little bit more steel on this flipper. You know, for a big heavy blade, you know, it's over 1/8 of an inch. It's got a long edge, 3 3/4 inches. It takes a little bit to get it moving. You know, the detent is dialed in. If the detent was off, you know, it'd be even more annoying. But no, the detent's dialed in. Everything else about it, well, not everything. I'm not that fond of the pocket clip, but I've said that many times. So between the flipper and the pocket clip, pretty much everything else I really like. There's so much going for this knife. I love the blade shape. Of course, I like stonewash more, but that's pretty minor. Got a nice sharpness to a decent plunge, a very good choking up spot. The grip in the main section is very comfortable. Many different grips are very comfortable. Oh, right, it could use a little bit more jimping. But that's not really that big of a deal. That's just a preference kind of thing. It's not a problem. Nice T8 screws everywhere. Flush screws on the body that I like. And the quality of all the screws are good. The screws on the pocket clip and everything. Nice thin behind the grind. You can put that to whatever angle you want. If you are fine with that flipper, then you're probably going to be fine with the other minor annoyances. That's the main thing, in my opinion, about this knife that I don't like. But overall, I quite like it. Night Morning Design did a good job with this thing, and TwoSun did a pretty good job with executing it. So thanks for watching my video. Thank you so much for liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. And remember, friends, cut towards your chum, not your thumb. Bye for now.